Good morning, everybody. This is Diggs. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest. Today, we're going to be talking about VC buffs that Global has that JP doesn't, what I think about them, whether they're too powerful or not, and how they kind of shift things in what I think is a positive way in the global meta. Let's go ahead and dig in. So global bestowed unit buffs have been added all the way back when Titan and Leviathan were first coming out. And they have changed the way that the buffs have been rolling out. Some of them are really relevant and other ones are not relevant. Let's go ahead and take a look at Titan and Leviathan since they were some of the first. And we'll kind of highlight the changes between what we were seeing back then and what we're starting to see now. When you're looking at Leviathan back then, they had the attack up 10% for these units on the JP side. They did not have the max HP up 10% and the slash attack up 10 for light element units. So that was kind of the first buff. And what's unique here about this kind of buff when we're looking at Leviathan and Titan is that it covers multiple units, right? Now, when you look at Titan as well, come down here, you can see that you get attack up 30% if you're running a Valkyrie, a Dragoon, or a Lancer. Now, this that are water and earth element, this covers many units, right? There are many units that kind of fit into that niche. It's not for a single individual unit. Even when we had Kane released, even his VC gave attack up 30% to Cecil and Rosa, and it gave pierce attack up 20 to Kane, and attack up 30% to Dark, right? So a little bit different, but again, they all kind of got a little bit of a buff. It was for multiple units. Now, as we've been transitioning into kind of this future world of VCs and mono element compositions, we're seeing buffs that are very similar to Ildira's VC, which is water attack up 20 for Ildira. We're seeing buffs to Mask of Deceit, which gives pierce attack up 20 to Glaciella and Victora, right? We're also seeing other VCs like Igaion, which was a huge one, which gave slash attack up 20 to Lightning and Wind. Insert the jobs here, right? And it's getting more and more specific kind of as we're growing to the point where now when like Rob's VC comes out, Rob's VC is going to give Rob exclusively a slash attack up 20, right? Where this might have been giving all katana wielding units slash attack up 20, right? So we're seeing a transition. Black Rose Helena, all of a sudden it's agility up for Helena and Black Rose Helena, right? For Tidus's VC, we're seeing a buff exclusively for Tidus. So on the global side, we've kind of transitioned from global exclusive buffs that are going to be kind of horizontally progressing and supporting your entire roster to VCs that are supporting a single unit. Is this a good thing? Is this, helpful to the global meta? Should people be happy about this? Should you be excited? I actually think this is a pretty good thing. And the reason why is because we have a situation where we are in a world where mono element metas do exist and mono element teams do get a very powerful bonus, right? So you're in a situation where mono element teams can kind of buff each other with their mastery abilities. They can buff themselves with like VC bonuses, and you're kind of left with like, well, what about non-mono element teams, right? Like, what about all of the other units? And these single unit VC buffs, while really powerful if you can slip them into like a mono element party, actually make a unit viable really on their own in terms of not being in a mono element or sliding into like a 2 mono element party, right? A great example of this would be Black Rose Helena right now. And Black Rose Helena's VC is beneficial for the entire party, right? It gives agility up 15% to everybody, and it's going to buff her own agility up 10% as well. That is a really powerful single unit buff that is beneficial to other units in the party and doesn't necessarily force you to play with mono element compositions, right? Whereas if you were to run a VC like Rob's VC, the party ability only gives light attack up 50%. It only gives light unit evasion up 20%. So we kind of have these two classes of single unit VCs, right? And I love to see the ones like the Black Rose Helena VC, because to me, that is the sign of a successful VC to both enhance the unit individually, but also enhance a mono element composition as well. Another great example would be Ildira in Tidus's VC, right? Tidus's VC is very powerful for himself, but it also gives him that attack 30%, which it did have in JP, but it also gives him some accuracy and defense piercing rate up. Like, you could slip this into a party. Like, let's say you want to run like Black Rose Helena in Tidus. This would be enough to make Tidus powerful enough on his own. You wouldn't need other VC buffs, right? Very similar to 2B's TMR. I would actually say Igaion is very similar too, because it gives slash attack up to the party, but it also buffs extensively Sid or Ravi's, right? So a lot of these VCs enable us to not have to run mono element compositions, and it kind of lets them be, or these units be, successful on their own. Probably the biggest example of this, I personally feel, is with Ildira, because Ildira has a VC that everybody wants, which is area attack resistance up. Water unit dex up 35% is the other on there, but it does give her water attack up 20 as the individual buff, very similar to Igaion. Very powerful, but not overpowered, right? Because you're assuming, you know, maybe Ildira is meant to be in a non-mono element composition, right? Ildira also doesn't have a mastery ability, right? You look at Sid. Sid does not have a mastery ability that buffs his companions, right? So there's lots of things to think about when you're looking at these. And I think the adjustment in power level that Global is receiving for the VCs, almost the majority of the time, strengthens the individual unit in non-mono element compositions. The two exceptions I would say so far would be Tidus's VC and King Rob's VC. But even then, there is no real light slash meta in light element units. I think people try and make light slash work and it never does. And it really only benefits Rob, maybe El Sorel a little bit, but you don't see Warrior of Light running in and just one-shotting people with his attacks, right? Same with Cecil, same with Thancred, right? They're all kind of a little bit more defensive. If anything, it just gives them a little bit more power. Tidus's VC is probably the most powerful in a mono element slash composition. But again, there's not a ton of water slash units that are running around obliterating people. It's not like you have, right, like Oron and Gilgamesh, and they're both water element, right? So I think it's just an interesting conversation to have. And I'm curious to see how the global changes are going to be coming in the future. I also think it's interesting that old VCs are getting adjusted. Kind of what happened with the Black Rose Helena VC, where they actually added Black Rose Helena onto the agility bonus for the Black Rose Helena VC. That was a projection that I actually made when I was talking about VC buffs and kind of the VCs for Black Rose Helena. So it makes me wonder if maybe we're going to see older VCs become more relevant with new units coming out. In particular, I'm thinking about when Camillo comes out, for example, and we already have this Camillo VC, right, that nobody wants. Right? Nobody wanted this VC. This was a VC, I'll pull it up right here, that nobody was like, I want this VC. It was so unpopular, right? Dreams of heroism. So unpopular that they literally gave it away for 2K paid Visior, right? I could see this being the type of VC where all of a sudden it's going to get a buff for Camillo, or it's going to get a buff for some other Earth element unit, and it's actually going to become maybe relevant. Keep in mind, Camillo is a light element unit, so it's going to be a little weird if they do add Camillo to this particular VC, but it does seem to be what they do, right? Because they added Mastery to this, and they added Mastery to give agility up and magic attack resistance up. Probably they're going to be adding Camillo to it. I think about situations like the Moraga VC, right? Moraga VC is very powerful. Earth unit critical hit rate up 25 for the party, slash attack up 35. If Moraga, when he comes out, has an exclusive buff added to the Echoing Screams card, the Echoing Screams card has always been a good VC. Quite often, though, it's overshadowed by Igaion because Igaion has the accuracy up. But I could see a world where if Moraga's VC gets a huge single unit Moraga buff, not only would it make Moraga more viable, right? Earth unit critical hit rate up 25 is very powerful. In a world where we have Cloud and Charlotte coming in the future, we could actually see a single buff to this VC for Moraga. We could see a shift in kind of this Earth meta that might be coming in the future. All of this to say, I love the single unit buffs that we are getting in Global because I think 9 times out of 10, they are effective at making a unit more viable, very similarly to how we are getting EX units that are released earlier on the Global side that were kind of ineffective on the JP side, right? That's like Rain 120 right now, right? Rain was not great because he was released almost simultaneously with Charlotte, who is objectively better than Rain, right? But now in Global that we've had Rain released early, he's actually pretty good and people are using it. Very similar to Gilgamesh being released early, right? Very great. People are using him. Things are going on. So I'm just excited with the way that the VCs are getting buffed. I'm excited to see what they do in the future. I'm always a little wary though, because whenever you're seeing changes that we're getting that JP doesn't get, there's always a chance that they might overpower a unit. Right now, I do think Black Rose Helena is a little bit overpowered, particularly with the agility spike that she does have. But maybe since we're seeing agility in a lot of the VCs, like 2B's VC has more agility on it, maybe we'll be seeing some way to counter agility here in the near future. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for watching. As always, have a great rest of your Sunday. I will be streaming later tonight, and hopefully I'll see you guys there. Bye-bye.